With going over the disappointments of the NFL season, I thought it's time we take a look at the top 10 biggest surprises of the NFL regular season of this past year.
Let's talk football.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the All Around Sports Podcast, where sports are everything on this channel. I'm your host, Antonio. Today, we are going over another top 10 list. A few days ago, I went over my top 10 biggest disappointments of the NFL season. If you want to go check that video out, I'll have that link down in the description. But today, we are going to reverse it and go over my top 10 biggest surprises of the 2025 NFL regular season. But man, this year was full of a lot of surprises. So I'm going to get into that list here in just a second. Before we get started, if y'all do enjoy this video, please be sure to do me a massive favor and smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. For now, let's get into the list. Coming in at number 10, one of the biggest surprises coming from a terrible team is Drake May's surge despite a poor offense. Now, normally, at the beginning of the year when the Seahawks faced against them, it was Jacoby Brissett that was starting. But when Drake May came out on the block, we were not expecting this man to be as safe as any other quarterback.
I'm in danger.
Because we all know the offensive line in New England. But this guy has shown something. His stats are not eye-popping, but this guy in Drake May, he actually looks really good. And looking at some of the games that he's played, going over a few of the stats here, he had a QBR of 66.6. He had 2,276 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, while having a QBR of 88.1, which that is not bad. That QBR is not bad. I think many people expected him to be like at 40, but this guy, if the Patriots go out there and get some weapons and get some offensive linemen with Mike Vrabel now there instead of Jerod Mayo, this offense could be a really good unit in the future. I'm not expecting them to win a championship, but Drake May is rising, and that's why I have Drake May at number 10. Coming in at number 9, another surge from a terrible team, is Brock Bowers storms onto the scene in Las Vegas. Now, of course, the Raiders were not a really good story. Of course, being 5-4 the year before they hired Antonio Pierce as their head coach. But now, of course, he got fired. But the main thing that not a lot of people expected was Brock Bowers' surge that he had. He was one of the 4 rookie receivers to have over 1,000 yards. He had 12 receptions for 1,194 yards and had 5 touchdowns. This guy, Brock Bowers, I said this. I knew he was going to be like a dark horse pick coming into the draft. I knew whoever picked him up was going to get a really good guy because I'm a representative of the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm not from there, but I've been a fan of them ever since they beat Alabama. But Brock Bowers, if they get the right quarterback in Las Vegas, that this team could be a scary, sneaky team in the near future. Because now that they fired Antonio Pierce, there's now a lot of questions on who they should get. One guy I would suggest is either Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn. If they can get any of those guys or any coach that is actually really good and can get team wins, then this team could likely be in contention for a playoff spot next year. But the Raiders, they got a superstar in the making in Brock Bowers, and we'll see if he has the quarterback to do it next year. Coming in at number 8, you got the black and gold incarnation of winners, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still making a playoff appearance, but with the same result.
Oh, there's a big surprise. That's an incredible. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
Now, the Steelers. Many people, including myself, expected that this team was going to finish both in last place in the division and also not make the playoffs. We were all wrong. The Steelers ended up still making the playoffs despite their late season collapse. They started the stretch 10-3. They finished the year 10-8, including the playoff loss. But one thing I will say about the Steelers is the main thing that surprised me the most was their record. I was surprised because Russell Wilson, it was his first playoff appearance since leaving Seattle. Of course, he couldn't do anything there. But this team was expected to be one of the worst teams in the AFC North. With Cleveland maybe being a playoff team, we all know what happened there. Cincinnati expected to win the division. We all know what happened there. And then the Ravens, they won the division as many people had expected. But the Steelers, they were not talked about that much during the entirety of the year, except by myself and many other people. But the Steelers, they got a lot of decisions to make. They have 11 of their key starters in free agency, including Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. We'll see if what they do in free agency, and I hope that they try to bring in Sam Darnold, because if Sam Darnold goes to the Steelers, that might be a little interesting for the Steeler faithful. Just saying. And at number 7, speaking of Sam Darnold, you got the Minnesota Vikings going 14-3 through the regular season. Now, at the beginning of the year, I had stated in a video that I had this team as an early season dark horse. And I did. I was not expecting them to go 14-3. That's for dang sure. My highest ceiling, if I remember correctly from my prediction video that I did at the beginning of the year, is I had expected them to be at a highest ceiling of 9-8. But I'll of course have to look back on my footage from that video. But the Vikings, they got a really good future ahead of them if they can get another quarterback like JJ McCarthy, and hopefully he stays in Minnesota, especially after what Sam Darnold pulled in the game against the Rams. Seeing ghosts, but this is a good sign for Minnesota. They might be in contention for NFC title sooner rather than later, and we'll see what happens with Minnesota. But I wouldn't be surprised if they contend with the Detroit Lions for the division next year. Coming in at number 6 is one of the biggest surprises that not a lot of people expected. The Buffalo Bills apparently are not in a rebuild. The Bills, they were expected to be in rebuild mode at the beginning of the year after letting go of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Apparently, the people that said it was wrong, including myself. But the Bills, this team just thrives as an underdog. This team just thrives. They went 10, they finished with a record of 13-4. They are right now in a playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens as I'm currently making this. Of course, we'll see what happens in the game. And if this game happens, I'll go over what happened in that game. But the Bills, no one expected them to win their division. Nobody expected to make them to get them into the playoffs. Nobody expected any of this. And yet Josh Allen is putting up MVP type numbers as a quarterback with weapons like Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, Dawson Knox, James Cook, and Ray Davis. And he's still putting up MVP numbers, even without two of his biggest weapons. And we'll see what happens with the Bills. Maybe they can make it a deep run this time, as I'm currently making this. But if the Bills get eliminated, it's a good season for them regardless, because they were expected to be in rebuild, but yet they got as far as they did. So I'm happy with what the Bills did. So that's why I have them at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is one of the many biggest surprises of the year. You got the Denver Broncos making a playoff appearance for the first time since the Super Bowl that they won with Peyton Manning. But man, this team has just been a roller coaster ride. Of course, they got eliminated by Buffalo in the early round, which was expected. But nobody expected this team to be in the playoffs, including me. This team, Denver, they were expected to be one of the worst teams in the AFC. They were expected to have one of the worst team rosters in the NFL. And look at what they did. They went 10-7, making their first playoff appearance since 2016. And on top of it all, they made the playoffs. They were not expected to be even in that conversation. And Bo Nix, he may have had his slump in the early parts of the season, especially one of the losses coming against my Seahawks early week one. But nobody expected this team to be in the picture. Nobody. And Denver Broncos may have expected this, but I most certainly didn't, and probably did many people. The Broncos, Bo Nix is actually looking really good in Denver, and I'm surprised that they looked as good as they did. And who knows? Maybe they might be in contention for the division next year. We'll, of course, wait and see what happens with Kansas City. But the Broncos come in at number 5 because of their shocking playoff appearance. Coming in at number 4 is Jim Harbaugh's return to the NFL shocks the NFL. Pretty much the Jim Harbaugh era was expected to be really good to start off with, but nobody expected a playoff appearance from this team. Nobody. They were expected to finish with a high ceiling, in my eyes, if I remember correctly, at 9-8. They ended up going 11-6, of course, getting eliminated the uh, by the Texans in the first round. But the Chargers, they looked really good throughout the regular season. Justin Herbert is looking like a better quarterback with the proper head coach. But the Chargers, if they can build around that defense and get more receivers in that offense, I would not be surprised if this team contended for a Super Bowl in 2 to 3 years, because this team is on the rise. Jim Harbaugh is known for making these type of cultures. He did so with San Francisco before they let him go. And I'm just saying this right now, if the Chargers win a championship and it's with Jim Harbaugh, then the 49ers, you might want to brace yourself, because I might feel some tears coming on for 49er fans, because if that happens, that would be a big surprise and probably be very devastating for the 49ers fan base. Coming in at number 3 of the biggest surprises is, of course, my team, the Seattle Seahawks, going 10-7. Now, early in the season, I predicted their floor of a record of 9-8, and I predicted their ceiling to be 10-7. I was apparently right in the highest ceiling. But this team, Seattle, of course, they had their ups and downs throughout the entirety of the year, but nobody expected them to be 10-7. From what I got from some people, I looked back at some of the predictions of records for some of the team for some from some people from this team. They were expected to go 14-3. Some people expected them to go 5-12. Heck, even some people expected, for some weird reason, for them to go 0-17. And then they absolutely flipped that around and improved on their record from what they had with Pete Carroll, and went 10-7, having the best season from a first year head coach in Seahawk history. But the main thing that stood out was the fact that this team was in a playoff contention. Of course, they lost the division to the Los Angeles Rams in week 17, when they had the strength of disadvantage against the Rams. And of course, they won that last game because the Rams pretty much had nothing to play for. and ended up winning and going to the next round, which we all know they're going to probably get eliminated. But the Seahawks, if they can build around this team, and if they can go out there and get a quarterback, maybe in free agency, maybe via draft, maybe primarily Jackson Dart is one of my targets. This team could be in contention for a playoff spot in the near future. And who knows, maybe the division, because the 49ers apparently ain't going anywhere when their injuries are mounting. Coming in at number 2, you got the Los Angeles Rams winning the wide open NFC West. Now, the Rams, at the beginning of the year, with the loss of Aaron Donald to via retirement, no one expected, including myself, for this team to be in a playoff contention. But this team, somehow, I don't know how, but they ended up still making the playoffs and having one of the best young defenses in the National Football League.
You have annoyed me for the last time. Yep.
They actually boat raced the entirety of Minnesota, which shocked a lot of people, including myself. But this team was mainly inconsistent for some parts of the regular season. Of course, they went and beat Seattle in Seattle, and then eventually lost to Miami the week after. They went into New England and pounded them, and then they got pounded by the Eagles the week after. Then they posted up 44 points against the Bills, and then only put up field goals in one of the worst games in the NFL, of course, other than the Seahawks Bears game. But we don't really need to talk about that. But this Rams team was not expected to be in the playoff picture. And yet they won the division in a wide open NFC West picture with the 49ers with their injuries and also the Arizona Cardinals in their mediocrity. But this Rams team, they got a very bright future ahead of them. They have a very stacked young defense and have Cam Kitchens, which was a guy I wanted. But the Rams, they're heading in the right direction, and they might be in contention for another Super Bowl sooner rather than later. And then number 1, the biggest surprise of the NFL season. No surprise here. It's the Washington Commanders playoff run and Jaden Daniels' rise. May, who would have thought that the Commanders, having a total margin of 4 wins last year, would be in contention for a playoff? Who would have thought? This team exceeded every expectation. I mean, there was not a lot of expectations on them at the beginning of the year, like the Houston Texans when they got CJ Stroud. But this team, the Commanders, they of course have former Seattle Seahawk and Hall of Fame Ring of Honor member in Seattle, Bobby Wagner. This team, the Washington Commanders, this team has been shocking, to say the least. Hayden Daniels was walking into a somewhat terrible situation and was expected to be one of the worst teams in the NFC East. But they make the playoffs. They beat the Cowboys once, so that pretty much satisfies the Commander fans. And then they went into Tampa Bay and beat them in the playoffs and won their first playoff game in nearly 20 years. This team, the Washington Commanders, with the first year with the head coach in Dan Campbell, former defensive coordinator and Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator in Seattle, this team was not even expected to be in this picture. I didn't even have them in this picture, as probably as many people. They didn't probably have them in the picture. But this team exceeded every expectation from what was put on the Texans of last year. Of course, the Texans last year went 10-7. Then they went against the Browns and then won that playoff game. And then, of course, that was at home. But this team exceeded that record even more by going 11-6, and also along with going a total record of 12-6, including the playoffs. But the main storyline when it comes to this Commanders team has been Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has been one of the most top performing rookies that we have seen in recent memory. He exceeded every expectation. He exceeded the most rushing yards from former Red Washington Commander. I know the former name, but I'm not allowed to say it. But it was RG3. But Jaden Daniels has been arguably one of the best quarterbacks of the rookie class. And I believe he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year honors because Jaden Daniels is looking like a superstar in the making. And hopefully, what happened to RG3 does not happen to Jaden Daniels because Jaden Daniels, he's a great quarterback. Got a really good system around him, and they might be in contention for a championship sooner than we think. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Who do you guys think was the biggest surprise in the NFL? Was it a player or team that I mentioned? Was there a team I missed and why? But let me know in the comments what you think. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to do me a favor and smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Till next time, I'll see you all in the next one. Ciao for now.